Yeah, so basically I post a video and you respond with,
yeah, Kris, but how am I supposed to buy a home with these interest rates?
and I'm sick of hearing it. So here's your video. How do you buy a home with these high interest rates? And here's how you do it. You buy the home, right? Now, today I'm gonna give you some strategies on what you're really asking for, which is, Krohn, these prices are so crazy, they're so high. How am I supposed to afford this? And I got bad news and I got good news. The bad news is it's only going to become more unaffordable. The good news is that instead of being the whiner that is complaining about it and saying it's a problem, is you turn it into something good. For just a moment, what would happen if you thought more like an investor and less like a consumer? Do you know how I feel about the prices of real estate going up? Imagine you owned as much real estate. No, just imagine you owned 10 homes. And all of a sudden it was like, that was so weird, in 2024, everything went up 100 grand. Well, let's count 100,000 plus 100,000 plus 100. That's $1 million. Like when you own real estate, you want the prices to go up. And you're like, yeah, but Kris, what about those high interest rates, right? I'm like, why am I buying real estate right now? Because I'm an investor. Do I have certain markets that I buy real estate in that I rent it out and I still make a profit? Yeah, 100%. Does it work in every market? No. So there's rules of the game of getting ahead. But before we talk about investing, let's actually back up and let's talk about what it's like as a consumer, someone that has a family, or just literally it's the American dream. Kris, I just want to buy a house for me. These interest rates are high. How am I going to deal with this? Now, as I do this video, if there's anything that I don't answer for you, I want you to see this phone number on my shirt. I want you to write it down and I want you to save it. And I want you to save it called Kris Krohn's private cell phone. And you are welcome to text me any financial question that you want. And I'm not gonna answer you right away, but I do promise to answer you. And I will answer your question because I have a huge passion about your financial education. Because if I can answer that question and it leads to your next brilliant move, that might be someday what leads to financial freedom or a much better financial outcome for your life. All right, with that, let's talk about interest rates and just kind of how we got here. From the COVID era, we had low interest rates that were below 3%. And then we've seen them fluctuate on a 30-year mortgage as high now as 8%. 2023 was the year of rate hikes over and over and over again. But you need to understand that in 2024, it is projected that we're expecting 6 rate declines. And there's kind of the big question of like, okay, 6 declines, if I lower it like 1/4% or 1/8% or 0.5%, how low might the interest rates get in 2024? Well, there's a lot of speculation out there. If you go with Rocket Mortgage or CNBC or UBS, they're all projecting somewhere around 2.5% to 3% rate drops, which means that we might end 2024 somewhere around a 4.5% to 5.5% rate, which means, wait a second, Kris, are you saying that I could just buy a home with a high interest rate today and then next year refinance it and just simply have the lower rate? Yes, that would be one of the 4 strategies that I am going to share with you today. But first, let's do a little bit of a blast to the past and let's scare you. Scare me? Yeah. Like, do you know what interest rates were in 1981? 16.6%. That don't make 7 or 8% sound all that bad right now, right? When was the last time we saw a 16% interest rate? Here's the freaky part. Do you remember the Great Recession of 2008? Well, I remember in the fall, technically it was October, I was just getting ready to buy another home. And the bank that I was buying it with, 2 weeks later was actually going to be out of business. And they didn't want to sign on the loan, but they were at the time of closing and they had promised to give me a loan. And on the day of, you know what they said? Hey, do you remember that 6% interest rate we're going to give you? Well, now all of a sudden it's 16%. I actually was offered a 16%. They increased it from 6% to 16% because they knew I would never sign on it. And they were right. And then 2 weeks later, they were out of business. So that was just a short-term ploy. But I will tell you, in the early 80s, like, it was crazy. We saw those rates at 16.6%. They went as high as 18%. Now, there are some strategies on how you deal with this, and I want to give you some of them right now. I'm going to start with just the first one that I mentioned, which is you can still buy a home with a high interest rate. And even though I can't promise that rates will go down, I'm telling you right now that a year from now, being an election year, someone wants to be president again, and they are going to pull that lever. They're going to lower that rate. They got to re-stimulate the economy. There's not a lot of real estate transacting, and we are still missing over 6 million homes. So you could buy it now and just refinance later and just suck it up, having that higher payment for a short period of time. The second strategy I want to share with you is what's called an interest rate buy down. This is where you get your house under contract, you go to the bank and you say, bank, I would like a lower interest rate. And you can buy generally 1/4%, 0.5%, or even a full percent lower, but you got to pay for it up front. And you could literally pay out of pocket, or what you could do is you could literally go to the person you're buying the home from and say, hey, I need an extra $5,000 in concessions to buy my rate down. And so I'm gonna agree to pay $5,000 more for your house, but you're gonna give me $5,000 more in concessions so that it's wrapped into the mortgage. You don't gotta come out of pocket, I don't gotta come out of pocket. I'm just gonna buy down my interest rate. That's the second strategy. Here's the third one. It's called assumable mortgage. This is where you say, I'm gonna buy a house a less traditional way. An assumable mortgage is a type of home financing agreement where an outstanding mortgage and its terms are transferred from the current homeowner to you. So literally, let's say you find the house that you want to buy, and let's say they bought it 7 years ago and they have like a 3% interest rate. You could literally go to them and say, hey, I would actually like to buy this home from you, but can I finance it through you? They may let you keep the 3% rate and assume it. Or there may be a way to talk to the new bank and say, hey bank, I'm gonna buy this home. Or there may be a way for you to go to their bank and say, hi, I'm buying this home from them. I would like to get a loan from you for the higher price amount, but I actually want to assume the lower rate. And they may be willing to do that. The fourth strategy to share with you today is something called seller financing. And seller financing is a real estate agreement in which the seller handles the mortgage process instead of a financial institution. You literally go to the person selling the home and say, hey, would you be willing to finance the home to me? I've agreed to your price. Maybe I'll agree to even paying more than your price. Maybe the house is listed for $300,000 and you're like, hey, I'll pay $310,000 or even $320,000 if you be the bank. They're like, what do you mean I be the bank? It's like, well, you have a mortgage, right? Well, yeah. So I'll just make the payments directly to the bank and your mortgage will continue getting paid. Could we do something like that? When you have high interest rates like this, people get really creative. And I'm not gonna say that that is like an easy yes to get from people, but it's 100% out there. And it's why I've given you a total of 4 different strategies that you could be running with right now. Ultimately, I wanna give you a 5th strategy as a bonus for fun for free, which is partner with me. Like, I get that you might want to buy real estate for your family, but honestly, if there was ever a time in history to not put that money towards a primary residence, but instead an investment property, you might say, Kris, I don't know that world. Well, I know that world to the tune of $2 billion. I know that world to the tune of 6,500 single family transactions. And I know the top 4 markets where I want to go and buy that real estate where I'm going to get the highest performance. So if you have money that's sitting in like a retirement account, 401k, and IRA, if you have equity in a home, if you have money sitting in savings, you can click the link below. You can learn about partnering with me. And you know what? I'm going to show you a whole new world, because what I do with your money, instead of just buying you a home that will be good for you and your family, I'm going to show you how to turn an investment property over time into dozens of investment properties, all of them producing positive cash flow, all of them giving you tax benefits, reducing your income to the point where you may never need to pay taxes again. But more importantly, being able to trade that portfolio for millions of dollars at retirement. That is a 5th option. And you might be watching this video saying, yeah, but Kris, what about me and my family? Well, I've given you some ideas. This is perhaps one of the most important ideas that I can give you today, which is think beyond your own current family's needs and think about your family's future. That's what you do when you become a real estate investor. That's what happens where you've got 90% of millionaires making their money in real estate. Click the link below, learn about partnering with me, and let me show you how to get it done. Okay, Kris Krohn, super interesting. I got a question for you then. If you're gonna invest in real estate, where are you buying it? And I'm gonna tell you right now, there are 4 markets where I love to buy real estate because it's where I earn double the ROI than I could if I bought it in your backyard. And if you wanna know how to turnkey access those markets where you can make all of that money in the game of real estate, click right here, watch this video, let me show you.